Hey guys and gals, I ran into a local musician, Sylvester,
Local historian.
local historian, Sylvester Hoover, and he's going to tell us actually more than what I can about this lot of land and the story of Robert Johnson. So here's Sylvester Hoover. Hi, Sylvester.
Hello, thanks for visiting the Delta. And right here, right now, this is Baptist Town. You notice when you came into Baptist Town, it's surrounded by railroad tracks, track here, track here. And the railroad tracks separate the peoples, separate the black peoples from the white peoples. In 1938, if you was black, this is the only place you could live in the city limits of Greenwood. And Robert Johnson lived it right here in Baptist Town. And Robert Johnson wouldn't go out to work because he could make more money playing his blues music than he could working. And he used to go to this store right here and buy his Prince Albert tobacco. And Mr. Truett was a white guy. Wow. He owned the store. And he wouldn't touch Robert Johnson's hands because Robert Johnson was a black guy and he played the devil's music. So Mr. Truett would put his tobacco in a brown paper bag. And that's what Robert Johnson would use to write his songs on. And Honey Boy Edward lived it over here too. He was the last guy to play with Robert Johnson, and he died maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And he said Robert Johnson would have 8 or 10 songs stuck on the wall that he had written on those bags that Mr. Truett give him. And Honey Boy Edward said he would say, ask Robert Johnson, what song you gonna play this week? And Robert Johnson would say, John wrote that one, I wrote that one, Susan wrote that one, the devil wrote that one. Which one you think I'm gonna play? He said, always would choose the devil's music. And he said, Robert Johnson, one Saturday night he left here, this place. So he had on a black pinstripe suit and a red necktie and said he was going to meet the devil. And he said Robert Johnson came back 2.5, 3 hours later, and he said he met Robert Johnson right down here by this church. And so Robert Johnson would hit tunes like you never heard before. He said seemed like his hair would stand up on his head when Robert Johnson started playing his music. And he said from that day forward, Robert Johnson never was the same. He said he never was the same guy. And Robert Johnson used to play right here at this spot, right here.
You were telling me, Sylvester, his house actually was right behind this purple one.
His house was actually right behind this purple house here. And he would play right here. And see, this was a juke joint right here. And this was a white people juke joint. And he couldn't go in to play inside the juke joint, so he would play right here. And Honey Boy said, after he went and met the devil, said, when Robert Johnson started playing his music, the people would come from here and yonder to hear this guy play. He said he was like a magnet. He would draw people to him like you'd never seen before. He said whatever he did at the crossroad, he's never was the same again. And said his music just took off like you wouldn't believe. You know, but he don't know exactly what he did at the crossroad.
And Sylvester, I heard, I don't know if you could, share on this. Back in the day when the juke joints were segregated, I hear that the actual white folk used to go to the predominantly black juke joints and buy the corn whiskey out the back door, a lot of the juke joints.
No, what it was, see, white people had juke joints in the black neighborhood. They would have a cafe here. See, they would have a cafe here, but Robert Johnson couldn't go in their cafe. But women's in this area would be cooking for him, waitress, all that in the place. But Robert Johnson, a black person, couldn't go in to the juke joint. And that's why he would play on the outside of the juke joint. And that's what they did, you know. But Honey Boy Edward said when Robert Johnson started playing his music, said people would come from here and yonder. And I would ask Honey Boy all kinds of questions. I said, would white people come across this track? He said, man, people would come from here and yonder to hear this guy play. He said, this guy was like a magnet. He would just draw people to him. And Honey Boy said, he don't know exactly what he did at the crossroad. But whatever he did, he never was the same again. And Honey Boy said they all used to go to the crossroad and pray.
It's amazing, Sylvester, because, I know a good amount about blues music, but I will say that, as far as his impact and influence on the whole scene and community and future generations is probably the most profound of all the legendary blues players.
I got to agree with you, man, because I see peoples that I would never seen before, exception of Robert Johnson brought those peoples to me. They would come searching for Robert Johnson. Look at you here. See, blues bring people, and Robert Johnson blues is going to probably be the bridge to people to connect the people together, because so many people are affiliated with Robert Johnson. So many people want to know the story of Robert Johnson, and you know, and this guy he just did what he do, and the way they got the blues out the Delta, he would hop this train and go to Memphis. That's the only way he could get the blues out the Delta. And Beale Street is imitating this right now, because that's what those guys used to play on the street corners and alleys, because they couldn't play inside a building. The only way they could play inside a building, they'd go to a juke joint somewhere. That a juke joint is nothing but a house. They move the furniture in the back room and you play music in the front. And that's what a juke joint is.
Wow. Sylvester, thank you so much. I'm running out of storage on my phone, but people, this is Sylvester Hoover, a local Greenwood historian, and this is great stuff. People, more than what I could have ever told you. Sylvester, thank you so much.
No problem. Glad I could do it. To buy Prince Albert tobacco, he couldn't say, give me a can of Prince Albert tobacco. He's giving me a can of Mr. Prince Albert tobacco, because that was a white guy's name. And Mr. Truett would put it in a brown paper bag.
Wow,
that's what he thought he was doing injustice to Robert Johnson by putting it in a brown paper bag, but he was helping him, because Robert Johnson didn't have paper to write his music on, so he wrote it on those bags.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.